Hey guys, this will be video 3 for the how to restore a 69 Gibson Les Paul Goldtop, and probably a burst for that matter as well, if they made a burst in 69. Probably not. Or maybe they did, I don't know. What that guitar, they called it the Deluxe. I think they had a lot of different options. So the history is really intriguing. I had no idea that when they came back in 68, that the 68 is almost identical to the 59 and before. So once you got into the 69, that's when they introduced the sandwich construction, or some people call it the pancake body. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all, and the tones are off the charts if it's done properly, which it was coming from Gibson. But with this guitar, it had an interesting history. And I got to recap some of this stuff, because what we're going to cover in this video is I'm going to go into extensive detail talking about building your fretboard from scratch and why you would want to do that, but also why you would not want to do it. And to go straight to the finish line, I would highly recommend that you don't do that. I would recommend buying that fretboard from a professional shop. But I had a bit of a layout issue here with this guitar, because when it came to me, it had a 25.5-inch scale fretboard. Well, I've got it right here. I had this 25.5-inch scale fretboard, and Jerome, I'm sure you'll be watching this video. If I say anything that sounds like I'm throwing this guitar under the bus, I am not. It's just I'm making statements and I'm just making general statements about how it prompted me to proceed forward with the restoration. Okay, so with this guitar right here, you can see it had a much longer neck, lower. So we always knew that was going to take place, where it was going to get shortened back up and turn into more of a traditional guitar. So it's a good 3/4 of an inch shorter, if anything. However, and I knew this on the front end going into it, it mounted the body at roughly at the 16th and a half fret location, but it's a 25.5-inch scale. And I kind of made the assumption, well, odds are they probably didn't relocate the bridge. They probably just relocated the position. They just carried the 25.5-inch scale from the center line of that bridge location. Well, I was wrong about that. They did back the bridge up just slightly over 1/8 of an inch. So fortunately, they didn't back the bridge out too much. So that's a major plus. But I am going to have to relocate this bridge forward that distance, because it will allow me to maintain these locations right here without coming in here and removing these pickups and having to reroute this body. I hope that, let me see if that was even in the camera. Yeah, that was barely in the camera. Let me recap what I'm doing here. Okay, 16th fret location, 25.5-inch scale. That's a Fender scale. How that happened, who knows? It's irrelevant. 23rd fret location. That's a real strange thing that I don't understand. But I noticed on the very front end that there's some ghosting right here, shrinkage, where this pickup location used to be back a little bit over a quarter, over 3/16 of an inch, not a quarter. It may be 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the ghost line up there, but all of that's irrelevant because of this right here. Okay. So, and these were things that even when on the very front end, when I was having the conversation with Jerome about, yeah, man, I can rebuild your guitar and we can convert it back to the original scale and whatnot. And when you see pictures of a guitar that is playable, you since you don't have the ability to measure anything, you just look at it and you make the assumption, well, odds are that's in its historically accurate location. It's got this weird 23rd fret right here. So maybe they just did that to make up for not having to move this pickup from its original location. Well, that wasn't the case. So I made the wrong assumption. However, instead of panicking and calling your client going, oh wow, oh no, we're going to have to do this, or we're going to have to do that, and send them into the a realm of panic. When I just realized, well, it's no big deal. I knew it was off a little bit, but until I progressed through the job, did I want to sit down and start engineering how it was I was going to go about uh, building my own fretboard, which it's good to have that ability in case you need to, and then being able to, um, I call it trickery, where you make things a little bit wider or a little bit more narrow physically, but not visually. So, from a physical standpoint, if the client had have sent me this guitar with this fretboard and said, "Yeah, I just want you to glue it down," and then we'll be in great shape. Well, that would have been fine right at the point where you realize the 16th fret location is about almost 3/16 of an inch ahead, forward of where it would have been from the factory. Why? Because this pickup got shifted forward somewhere in the past. Okay, so we don't have to worry about that because we're not turning it into a custom. But that's one of the primary reasons I wanted to buy this fretboard, is so I could pick it up and in demonstration purposes show you guys, what Gibson was thinking. And I'm gonna go straight to the finish line here. You don't need all of this excessive amount of wood. I'm not talking about the distance from the edge of the binding to the very edge of the fret. I'm just talking about the wood. So from a visual standpoint, if I shorten this wood right here about 1/8 of an inch, well, the binding follows it, correct? And what does that do to the 16th fret location? It moves it in about 1/8 of an inch. Now I'm a little bit closer to where it would have been from the factory, and I didn't have to call my client and tell them, oh man, we're going to have to relocate this neck pickup. We're not. So since we're not going to have to relocate this neck pickup, we're not going to have to relocate the bridge pickup. We're going to be able to put this pick guard right back where it was. The only thing I will be doing is shaving off about maybe a 32nd of an inch there to get it to fit to the new fretboard, so that once it all goes together, I wouldn't have even had to have made this video and tell the client that I'm addressing this, because whomever did this work in the past, they did an exceptional job fitting this pick guard around these original pickup locations and all that jazz. Okay, so but the bridge location will have to be moved in a little bit. That's not extra. That was, I anticipated some of the things like that. I did not anticipate the possibility of having to relocate pickups. But if this had been off really, really bad, then I would have said, yeah, Jerome, I'm going to need to remove this pickup, route it back to its original location, and then epoxy in some maple up here, and then do the best I can to match that gold, and just do the best I can to make it all blend together. And that would have been an additional charge, but we won't have to do that, so there's no reason to even bring it up other than just a general conversation there. Okay, and how did I make that determination? Well, primarily, as I've mentioned in all the past videos, when you're working with a Les Paul, you're always working from the 16th fret location, which is defining this location right here. And then if you're off a little bit, then it just changes this down here. Say, for instance, if we had changed the scale to a 25-inch scale, but we wanted to maintain the 16th fret location right here, well, we definitely would have had to move the pickup back some. And we would have probably had to have moved, we would have had to have moved, well, we might have been able to have almost left this bridge in this location right here, which is not historically accurate. However, if it was in its historically accurate location, which is a little over 1/8 of an inch further, and we put a 25.5-inch scale fretboard on there, then we would have to move this back to accommodate for that scale. And you just get into this whole circus loop of defining the beginning of the fretboard. There's a fly in here. The beginning of the fretboard, the 16th fret location, and the center of the bridge. What is that? You're dealing with what's called the speaking length. And when you're dealing with the speaking length from an engineering standpoint, you need to go to either Stewart McDonald, StewMac.com. They have a fret scale calculator, or I always use a calculator online called Tundra Man, just like the Toyota vehicle, Tundra Man fret scale calculator. And you just go on his website or his very first page, and it's a no frills site. And then you just type in whatever your scale is, whether it's 24.625, which is historically accurate for the Gibson guitar in this era. They did use a 24.562 inch scale. I can't remember what years they did that, but they also did a true 24 3/4 inch scale on the very front end. I think the 50, 52, 53, 54, whatever their first year was an authentic 24 3/4 inch scale. But you can't get so what I'm holding right here in my hand, this is from the Gibson manufacturing. It is a 24.625. Okay, so that roughly 24 5/8 inch scale, and that's what this guitar is getting. And that's what this guitar would have had in the 60s, 68, 69, 70, all through the 70s. And I think all the way up to 84, because I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. One of the guys that chimed in and asked me about the scales and I think it's Joe Cooper. Joe, and I appreciate you watching for so long. But Joe had asked me about the binding and the arrows, and I believe when I restored that 80s Gibson Les Paul, it seemed to have specifications from 1975 to 84. It was a 1980. I may have misspoken just then. So the guitar I'm holding in my hand would be under the specifications of 1968 to 1974. Correct me if I'm wrong, any of you guys that are out there that are true historians about this product. But in other words, if this pickup had forced me to go with a 24.562 inch scale, I was ready to pull the trigger and do that. But I realized, if I just shorten, I got too many things. I need one more arm. If I'll just shorten that distance from here to here, don't need all that wood, then I'll be able to deceive the eye enough to bring that, actually physically bring that 16th fret location in to where it needs to be. And then the client will never even know that I almost pulled the trigger on rerouting out this location and moving it all in and all that stuff. Now, had this have been Chip's guitar, where we were reusing an original fretboard that was in phenomenal condition, I probably would have, I would have relocated a pickup location in order to reuse the actual authentic fretboard. But with Chip's guitar, once this all goes together and it gets the binding, okay, what you're looking at the end of the fretboard, I'm going to have to go ahead and talk about this. And for all you guys out there that bitch about me talking, all I do is talk, well, how much information do you think you would be able to receive if I just sat here and didn't say one thing and just showed you pictures? You wouldn't have a clue that this location right here is a drop that's going to get cut off and thrown away, and then the actual binding is not going to go right there, but the binding is going to be going up against that location. It's kind of hard to show. I'm not sure where the light is. The binding will be going up against that location right there. Well, what I should have done is shown you this. See, you would think that's the last fret, the 22nd fret, and that's the end of the fretboard. It's not. This is the 22nd fret location. Get it to stick. If I can get it to stick, that'd be awesome. This is pretty important. Okay, so 21st fret location, hence the 21st fret. 22nd fret, then the end of the fretboard. Okay, and you might think, okay, well, that's getting a little bit close right there. Well, yeah, it looks a little bit chintzy right now, uh, well, especially in relation to this fretboard. However, once you get the binding on the end of it, it extends out a little bit, and then from a visual standpoint, the guitar goes together. No one, not even like the George Gruins of the world, would pick up on that immediately. They might pick up on it if they really, really pull out their tape measure, but they're not. They're going to look at that and go, well, that's awesome. Whomever did the fretboard work, they made the fretboard long enough that it would have some wood there, that you see a little bit of stain, and then it's got the binding, and then the binding on the side, the binding on the side, and what does it look like? It looks like a 1969 Gibson Les Paul. Uh, uh, well, they called it the Deluxe, but to me it's like the standard because of the trapezoids. Okay, so those are that's the trickery you have to do sometimes in order to keep from going off the deep end and doing too much work, and also putting too much stress on yourself about, oh wow, I got to take it back completely historically accurate. Not that I'm having disrespect towards this guitar, but if this client has been playing this guitar with a Fender scale on it and an oddball, well, it's just odd in relation to this guitar. I think they would definitely have the understanding that, okay, well, that's awesome, man. That makes perfect sense. Nobody gives a, about 1/32 of an inch of wood there on the very end. Okay. So when you're doing these jobs, make certain that you communicate with your client. And then obviously when Jerome sees this video, if he came back and said, I got to shoot straight with you, Mark, I've always hated that damn line right there. Man, let's route that baby out and let's move that pickup back. Well, now's definitely the time to do it. But since I've already cut that a little bit short, we wouldn't be able to move it all the way back, is what I'm saying. So so in other words, I kind of made an executive decision there to make that judgment call so that we wouldn't have to get into a change in this body, because that would get very labor intensive for me. And I'm not saying I'm lazy, but I don't really think there's any point in doing that. And what does it boil down to? What I opened the video with, that right there. If we move this, well, now we got to redo this. And if we move that, well, now we got to redo that. It's no big deal. No big deal at all to come in here. And I probably will be able to even show it. Oh yeah, it ought to show up very easily. Let's see if it'll show up. What I'm asking you to look for is the original location of where the stud was, and it was right there. It should be showing up quite well right there. Okay, so I'll just be relocating these back to their 1969, 68, 70, 73, whatever year this guitar actually is. Moving it back to those specs. Listen to that. We'll do some tap tone work later on, but this neck was epoxied in per Jerome and I's conversation, and I don't know if. Yeah, I know Jerome and I talked about it. I did shape that heel down a little bit. I could take it down a little bit more, but I got to tell you, it's really beautiful, Jerome. I really prefer to leave it. And what does it feel like? Feels like a 50s, 60s Les Paul, man. Feels incredible. Access is really good. Thumb, if you wanted to let your thumb carry all the way up in there, it feels good. I was able to, I don't think I've had this conversation yet or shared this information. I was able to raise this heel up, because in the other neck, the heel came down really, really far, but I was able to raise this heel back up to a more of an authentic 50s, 60s location. But I did have to have it drop down about another 1/16 of an inch to cover up some little bit of butchery in there and whatnot. So it turned out really good. Okay. So what did I talk about? I talked about fretboards, scale, and just getting on track, but making the determination of when do you decide when is too much. And I think this was just a really good judgment call. So much so that I was comfortable enough to just do that, as I've already covered, and I won't rehash it. But from a visual standpoint, you might look at it right now and go, well, yeah, I can definitely see that it's more narrow. but it's only because this is a scrapper out here, just as every bit of this out here is a scrapper. See, this is the beginning of the fretboard, or the beginning of the speaking length, whatever you want to call it. That's the first fret location. But when you're building your fretboard, you always want to have a little bit of extra length so that when you're gluing it atop your template that you're working from, you're able to spot glue 4 little drops of CA glue, medium thickness right here, and about 4 drops across here. And then what I do is always come right in the middle, make a little mark on my jig where I did do the glue work, and I did 1 dot here and 1 dot there, and that assured that once I attach this to this jig flush on this side, that when I push that down, and then because I only have 2 hands, I actually leaned forward with my chin and pressed down into that, and you can see where the oil off of my skin kind of made an indentation right there. But what are you shooting for? Getting this fretboard perfectly flat, because see, the mother of pearl was still sticking up high, and I knew that the back surface of this fretboard was perfectly true, but it's about a 32nd of an inch thicker than it really needs to be. It's exactly 1/4 of an inch, maybe just a hair over 1/4 of an inch. But once I radius it and start sanding it, leveling it, truing it, sanding it, leveling it, truing it, etc., it'll drop in thickness to what location? To that thickness right there. See, I'm just barely able to catch my finger now on that right there. And what is this? Well, that's a Gibson. So if I'm within about a 64th of an inch, maybe a little bit more than a 64th of an inch right now, well, by the time I do all this radius machine work and sanding and leveling, I'll be within micro thousandths of the Gibson product, and which is also what I based these thicknesses here on. See, once it's all said and done, you want at your first fret to be about 7/8 of an inch thick from the back of the neck lower to the top of the fretboard. You want that to be about 7/8 of an inch. Okay, I've already covered this numerous times, but I'm just going to recap it. So when you measure from the back to the top, 7/8 of an inch, come up here to the 11th fret. Guarantee you that's the 12th fret, that's the 11th. Measure from the back of the neck lower to the top of the fretboard. You want that to be about 1 inch. If you want it to feel more like a 59, take it down to about 15/16. Gets a little bit thinner. So what happens in the 59? They average about 15/16 of an inch thick here, but only about a 1/16 of an inch more narrow up here. And sometimes they're pretty darn close to the exact same thickness. Sometimes I think they were closer to 15/16 of an inch thick here, and just barely over 15/16 right there. Okay, with that 1 inch rough profile on the back. All right, let me check the time. 23 minutes. Let me think about how I want to progress forward. I may have covered it in the front of the video. I've had a lot of guys that complain about all I do is talk, but you know, as I mentioned, it's like, hell, 99% of this stuff is theory and engineering. And when I first started building guitars, man, there wasn't anybody out there doing deep dive, information presentations as to what you're going to run into when you do this type of work. So I'm taking out the slack. But having the Stuart McDonald templates definitely helped. And I was going to progress into this a moment ago when I was talking about the differences and stuff. But let's talk about this briefly. Okay. Now, what I'm doing, I'm taking that stud location right there, and I'm letting it make contact with that hole right there. Well, I'm already off a little bit in relation to Stuart McDonald. So what I realized was, oh yeah, that's that stud location. Let's see if I can explain this without. Yeah, by moving the dot back, it pushes everything forward. Okay, so with that said, I realize. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm almost confusing myself. The drawn line right there is where it is currently. Where it's supposed to be is where Stuart McDonald says it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be right there, which is in fact about an eighth of an inch forward. We've already covered this. But look at something very interesting right here. And this is this oh man, this thing's heavy. The um, the 50s, because see this, what I'm holding in my hand, this is a 1950s. I'm not sure what year they did the P90s. Probably up until probably 56. I think 57 is when they introduced the humbuckers. But so we'll say this is a 54, 55 era, et cetera, et cetera. Look where the bridge location originally was. It was actually much closer. The bridge pickup location, the P90, was actually much closer to the bridge. What does that equate to? A much brighter guitar. Who were they competing against? Telecaster, Fender. Okay, that might have been intentional, but eventually it got moved forward because they probably realized we don't need it to be so bright. We need a warmer guitar, and the P90 in that location is ethereal bliss in the bridge location. Just think of the Les Paul Jr. With just the one bridge pickup location, a volume and a tone. There's a myriad of colors you can get out of that guitar. So when I put this template up here on Jerome's guitar, I was then able to determine that that bridge pickup, that neck pickup, excuse me, I did misspeak. The neck pickup, let me move that forward. The neck pickup definitely could move back a little bit closer to the bridge, but it's so darn close that it's irrelevant. Okay, and that's what I meant by what was kind of dictating that decision. Believe it or not, the pick guard is that's just one issue because it's such a beautiful fit. I've already covered that. I'm not going to talk about it again, but by having this template, at least I was able to gauge and make the determination of, how bad was it off? If it was really off catastrophically, well, we would have seen it. But the fact that you're looking at this guitar and you don't see it, if you don't see it visually, then you're pretty close to historically accurate, and it's probably okay to just move this bridge forward a little bit and be ready to put some strings on it. Okay. So, as I say, I apologize for all the details, but I don't know how to explain this stuff in 3 minutes where it really makes any sense to anyone. Oh, and another thing that I did make the determination, it's really cool having Chip's 71 Goldtop over on the other side of the shop. When I measured Chip's 16th fret location to his pickup location, his was about an eighth of an inch shorter. Not quite, almost an eighth of an inch shorter. So pretty darn close to the 59 spec. Now, let's see where Jerome's pickup is in relation to the 16th fret location, which is the edge of that blue tape. Well, let me move to the actual pickup openings. I'm on the pickup right now, but let me move to the pickup opening. So you can see Jerome's pickup is roughly within 1/16 of an inch of where the 50s. This is so important. Jerome's neck pickup is so close to the where I got it upside down. Okay, if you were building a 59 Les Paul with humbuckers, well, then there's your template on the back. If you're building a 50s Gibson Les Paul replica and you're going to put P90s, look at the location of the P90 in relation to the humbucker. Looks like they're identical, right? And what did we just determine by measuring Chip's guitar, by measuring the Stuart McDonald templates, by comparing that to Jerome's guitar? Well, Jerome's pickup is within 1/16 of an inch of where it would have been in any era Gibson. So I say we leave it exactly where it is. And however, back in the 50s, that's what I meant by this P90 was much closer to the bridge, whereas later on, this P90 got moved much further up. And that pickup is in, I think it's in the correct location because I didn't see any ghost lines on that. But you can see my reasoning by having another 71 Les Paul over on the other side of the shop, the Stuart McDonald templates, I was able to make the determination this pick guard is correct, and so is that pickup. Okay, so we can put that to rest. Now, let me pause, get the table cleaned up, organized, and then we'll move forward. Okay, I think I'm just going to spend the rest of the video just talking about how to machine the fretboard. Very unlikely that I'm going to chuck this baby up and start doing the work because as I got off the phone with Eric a little while ago talking about his SG, and I was explaining to him, it's like, man, you know, it hit me about a month and a half ago. When you're working on 3 vintage guitars, you don't have any room for error at all, like at all. Because after you've spent 3, 4, 5, 6 days getting to this point, the last thing you can do is be trying to do a video showing people how to do something, and then you make a mistake and you lose it. But I can at least talk about it, and if you're put it this way, if you're qualified to do that work, then you don't need me showing you how to do it. As long as I talk about the different bits that I use, then you can put 2 and 2 together and make the determination of whether you want to use a down spiral or an up spiral or just the little blunt. I think they call that the face. Whoop, catch it before it hits the ground. You know, you can make the determination as to which bit you want to use. I'll tell you what I used to do that bit work in a moment, but you make your own call, and I'll also give you my reasoning behind it. But let's talk about if you were getting ready to turn this raw blank of wood into a Gibson trapezoid fretboard. You have the option. If you go to Philadelphia Luthier Supply, I did a lot of research and I determined that they were the ones that had the closest to the. I guess I'll just lay it on here. They were the ones that had the closest to the historically accurate perloid. This is plastic. It's like extremely thick drum wrap is what it boils down to. But I'll just briefly run through this with you and show you what you'll be in for if you're getting ready to make your own fretboard. I have no interest in purchasing the ones from Asia that are pre-manufactured, but I got to tell you, after 3 nights of cutting pearl by hand with an X-Acto knife, it's extremely tempting to just buy it that way. But a lot of the stuff I have gotten from there, it's not accurate, and it looks great in picture, but once you get it, you realize 1 or 2 of the fret locations are off like a full millimeter. And my theory is that intentional? And I would just about say, yeah, I think it is engineered in to piss everybody off. Okay, so let's say you're going to build a guitar and it looks something like this right here. You got to figure out how to machine into this wood and it be accurate enough that it looks good, or what material do you even use? And if you use the perloid, it's much more affordable, but even if you epoxy it in, as you're doing your tap tone work, you'll be tapping, and all of a sudden you'll get more. It'll still be a little bit bright, but it won't be nearly as bright as an authentic mother of pearl. So, how do you go about doing this? Well, as I mentioned, you have to start with your fret scale calculator, and I use Tundra Man. You can use Stuart McDonald, but you got to make the determination of what scale it is you even want. You know, everybody knows that. It's also called the speaking length. Um, if you're doing this guitar right here, it's 24.625. Yeah, 24.625 is the scale. I don't know what the metric is. I do, but I don't want to guess at it. So once you know that scale, then it just simply boils down to having a very nice block like that you start from, and you want to make certain that you are perfectly flush up against that side right there. And I recommend always working from the nut location down here to the 24th fret, whatever you're doing to your right. So work from left to right, and it won't take but a moment to show you this. It's so funny, but it works so well. I bought this at a professional cabinet shop about 30 years ago over in Birmingham, Alabama. I used to build cabinets, and I bought this little scale here. It has metric on the bottom, and then it has SAE or imperial on the top. It's amazing. I thought, oh man, I'm never going to need that metric crap. What am I going to do with that? Well, I got to tell you, I'll go ahead and show you this jig that I used. Once I created this jig right here, okay, this little rough piece of poplar that looks like hell. This thing is NASA straight. It is absolutely flawless and has never moved, never even been sealed. Never had to seal it. It's an incredible piece of poplar, and you might look at it and think it looks like something for firewood, but that location right there, I drive it's probably a 3/32 of an inch bit. I run that bit down. Sorry, let me just go ahead and check. I kind of promised I was never going to show this thing, but basically I fasten this to a 4-foot level. That assures that my platform stays true. And then up here at this location right here, I run a 3/32 of an inch drill bit all the way through that location. And then from that location, now just read between the lines as I start talking about it, I am able to hang that little eyelet on that location, and I go over to 100, and 100 it doesn't matter where 100 starts on this blank of wood as far as the scale. It just matters that once you define 100, you have defined 0, or the beginning of your scale. And then you have your cell phone on the table with Tundra Man or Stuart McDonald opened up with your scale type, entered in, and then it gives you a grid system. In metric works best for me. I was like, what are the odds? The metric scale is on the bottom, so it works out perfectly for me being right-handed. I used to make tick marks at the scale locations, but I just finally went straight to the finish line. And after I got that in its jig, and I know that it's perfectly square or flush up against that side, I'm then able to just use my simple $20 square. Keep in mind, this is glued down. This has to be glued down. This can't move, because once you define 0, your drill bit doesn't move. Make certain it's deep enough that it's truly sticking up straight and it's very stiff. And make certain that when you run that drill bit in, do it on your drill press. Don't do that by hand, because you don't want it to be leaning in any offshoot way. And then you're simply just going down this scale with this up under it, with the X-Acto knife in hand. And if we're going to 132.5 millimeter, then we're going to be going to 232.5 millimeter on here, and I'm going to take the sharp edge of the blade and make, and then I'm able to remove this, set this to the side, hold steady, take the X-Acto knife and make one sharp slice, but then flip it over on the back side where it's square, and then score straight across. And what that will do, it will define the beginning of your, I wish I had a fretboard that's, oh yeah, I guess I do. It will define, where's the, yeah, okay, so I'm working from left to right. See that was the 100 location, or 0, and this is like 35.5, 56 point something, 81, blah, 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 and it just goes on and on and on. So when I make that first clean, sharp score across there just once or twice, well, I'll take that back. I probably did about 4 or 5. I kind of made a real defined cut. Yeah, I did, because I wanted to define the left side of that score line that I just made. Because when I flipped my blade over to the black side, which is about maybe a little more, about a 64th of an inch wide, maybe a little bit more. Keep in mind, I got a death grip on this baby. It hasn't moved. If it slips, start over, relocate it, make certain. But I've got a death grip on this, so that once I score that, I'm still holding a real tight grip on that location right there. My Jessica fret saw, 18 teeth per inch. I made a statement once, this is 235 thousandths. That's not 235 thousandths, because that's almost a quarter of an inch. This is 23 and a half thousandths is what this cut is. Okay, so as I'm sitting there holding that right there, I just made my backbone scoring, widen it up a little bit. Then I just do a real clean push cut and then a pull, and just really define. Let me do it up here in case I slip. I don't want to screw anything up. Okay, so I just go ahead and, well, I won't be able to cut that one because it's so deep. But I go ahead and define the actual fret location. That's where I'm going with this. You want to define that fret location, but only go deep enough that it's actually just defined. Because see right here, let me see if I can make certain I find a shallow one. Yeah, here's one. I'm just barely below the surface right there. And if I start sanding on this, there's a very strong possibility I'm going to get very close to losing that define, because all I wanted to do was define the scale 100%, so that I could then guarantee, once I started locating this mother of pearl, that I was perfectly centered, this direction and centered from side to side. That's just kind of a given. And most of you guys that are woodworkers or pearl workers, this is just common sense, quite frankly. We're just working off a center line, but you got to make certain that you define an edge so that you can then always work from the treble side over. Especially because, see, this fretboard is about a 16th of an inch wider than it needed to be. I could have put every one of these pearls 1/16 of an inch high, in other words, off center, but I would have had to have made certain that I didn't forget that I did that, because then if I came over here and tapered it and didn't make note of that center line, I would have tapered it offset, and it would have been an F up. But I didn't. I went ahead and defined, this is 2 1/4 of an inch, so I'd be willing to bet you Jerome's guitar that pearl is exactly 1 1/8 of an inch over to the center from both sides. But it's just that I worked everything from this flush side right here. Okay. And then it's just a matter of you do it however you want. You want to know the truth? You could just once you find, I actually go ahead and take a mechanical pencil and I draw a cross on it, and then I just and I've got pencil lines all over this grid system, mapping everything out, and then I actually do a pencil line between each fret, and then I just simply lay that up there, and then either pencil around it or go ahead and score around it. And this is when the really difficult part of the job begins. Then you've got to go to your drill press and by hand, or have some sort of routing jig where you route all these out by hand. I use a drill press, and I start out with I go ahead and start out with the I hope that shows. I don't know if I have a piece of paper in there. I'll just use this. And it's funny, I don't know if this is the up spiral or the down spiral, but as the bit is turning, it cuts in on an angle. If you use this bit right here, as it's turning counterclockwise, it cuts into the wood. You run a greater risk of tear out with that one. But if you're, well, in other words, don't use the one that spirals in that direction. And I would say this is probably the down spiral. I may be wrong. Whatever. Just use the one that is in, and I should have researched this before I did the video. Okay, as it turns, this is probably the down spiral, because as it turns, the actual blade travels down. So this is probably the down spiral. And it's a much sweeter cut when you go into it. Just set your drill press up so that it's at a certain depth. You're running this at about 3,800 RPMs is sufficient. And then you've got depth gauges and all that jazz because you don't want to go beyond that thickness. I was able to put these in where they were just barely proud. But then you're machining out all the mass to get to the point to where for the next 2 or 3 nights you're going to be using an X-Acto knife and chisels, easing all that material out and fitting every pearl one at a time, or either the pearloid. Okay, so it's really rough on your body. Right now I've had a headache for like 4 days straight from the stress in my neck from doing all the work. So don't think it's fun. It's not fun at all. It's a brutal task, and that's what I meant by, man, I wish there was somebody out there that I could just buy these from. I would pay money for that because, see, I don't have a CNC machine to do that stuff. I have to do it all by hand. But neither here nor there. After 3 or 4 days of the brutal task, and then about 3 or 4 days of healing, you come back and you realize, okay, I'm in a mood to do a video now and show everybody not what I accomplished, but just what they can anticipate if you're going to do a Les Paul. If anything, man, do an Explorer where you just drill the little buttons, and that's over in like 30 minutes. It seems like it goes much faster. Okay. Let me pause to get the table under control, and I'll figure out how to get out of this video. Okay, should be able to finish the video within about 10 minutes or so, or until the camera just cuts me off. Right now, I may have covered it. I don't think I did cover this. Before I did my pearl work, I obviously made certain that my actual fretboard was very true and very S4S, and it had to be exceptionally flat. Had to just be absolutely perfect, because whatever imperfection might exist in this path right now, as this router bit follows along it, it's just going to follow that imperfection. So if you had wave in it, it's going to follow the wave and destroy your fretboard. At a minimum, after it's all said and done, no, let me back up. I should have said that. That sounds sloppy. You've got to make certain that this fretboard is perfectly true and flush. If it, at a minimum, just go down the center line. At a minimum, just go down the center line and lower it. I'm talking about the wood just a little bit, in order to define a center and then flush it, flatten everything out after that. And then always, because after it's said and done, what's going to define this fretboard radius is once that bearing makes that final pass, PASS, across that center line, that's going to define the radius of the fretboard. So you're going to be cutting, you'll be starting out right here, maybe cutting up about a half an inch at the most. I raise it about an eighth of an inch each time. I typically make about 40 passes, 50 passes, 20 to 25 passes on each side. One pass here, flip it over, make a pass, raise the bit about an eighth of an inch, make a pass, flip it over, make a pass. We're working our way to the center line. And then once you get to that center line, believe it or not, you can allow the bearing, the very bottom edge of the bearing, to just ever so slightly go beyond, read between the lines. Just if that's the center line, just barely let that bearing go beyond the center line. If you start trying to step up too far, you run the risk of everything will be beautiful right up to the point where you make that last pass, PASS, and because it started radiusing on the other side, well, you actually found a point that was lower, and it caused this entire last cut to drop down and machine off an enormous amount of material. If you did that, you're going to have to flip it over and drop the bit and get it under control and hope to God that you can actually get them back true. It shouldn't be that difficult, because whatever the radius is at the flat center, you'll be able to define it. I've never had to do that because I've just never allowed this bearing to get up too high. Okay, that's just common sense. Okay, but before I do that work, right now, where's my fret rocker? We're at 51 minutes. Okay, so I know I got a flat surface. It does not move. But when I go on to the top of the pearl, I got a little bit of rocking. That's great. Thank God. Now I can use my fret rocker and go to that one. Got a little bit of rocking. Why do I have a little bit of rocking? Because when I machined that pearl off initially, I made certain that I didn't try to take it all the way down the finish line. I kept a pencil mark on the fretboard, and I actually used a orbital sander and just kind of went across it to kind of bring it down until I saw the pencil lines disappear, and then I stopped. And then I made some more pencil lines and then came across it with the orbital sander just a little bit, and then I stopped because I just wanted to knock that pearl down to where I could do what I'm about to do on camera and show you how I'm about to prepare this pearl surface to be perfectly flush with the fretboard surface. Once I have the pearl perfectly flush with the fretboard, now I'm ready to go over there and start doing all of my final radius shaping. Okay, so with the fret rocker, I'm able to come up here and rock a little bit on that one, rock a little bit on that one, rock a little bit, actually rock quite a bit on that one, rocking, 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 rocking. See my point? So what does that tell me? When I machine this fretboard, there are going to be no voids whatsoever. So I'm safe now. There's my pencil if I can find it. Okay. Okay, now we know that we are going to lose those pencil lines, but there's no sense in watching them disappear and then continuing to sand. Oh, let me pause. Okay, so obviously what you're getting ready to do is just sand off the mother of pearl and flush it with the wood. I like my SteelMac radiusing block, 220. You don't want to sand on this. You just want to make just a few passes to kind of monitor the pearl dropping down flush. And I have no idea how long this will take. It probably shouldn't take more than just maybe a minute or two. But at this point, tip it over your table. Okay, and look to see if you still have any pencil markings left. And fortunately, every bit of the pencil scarring that I did is still there. And just feel of it. You'll feel it. See, that one's already kind of flushing down there. So nothing wrong with, just, you know, in other words, just sand that pearl. Just focus on the pearl. There's no sense in getting out over here. Keep your, oh yeah, that's another thing I forgot. It's probably the most important part. Have your wire brush. Keep that pearl from building up. And look at your pencil marks. Just focused on thinking about sanding the pearl. You're not up here trying to sand on the fretboard because we know that fretboard is finished. I like the idea of using the long block rather than real small blocks because you run the risk of, oh yeah, it feels great. That one's just a little bit high. These are actually pretty close to finished. Now what you do, monitor your pencil marks and you can see that some of your pencil marks are gone. They're gone. The pencil marks are gone right there. I still see a faint ghost pencil mark right up in here. It gets pretty pronounced up here, only because I didn't really focus on that area. I'm going to hit this just a little bit. .220 aluminum oxide. No sense in going to a different grit because after you do the radius work, you're going to be coming back with 220 and sanding as well. So there's no sense in taking this up to a beautiful polish because you're about to route it back down. And it's going to be pretty rough after you do the route work. I forgot to clean that sandpaper. That might be what that scar is right there. Oh no, that's good. That's a good sign. It's not building up. So that lets you know you're getting down to truly riding across the wood and the pearl. And I can feel it. It's flush. It's flush enough right now to go ahead and machine, but I just want to rub. I want to get it down clean enough that I can, see, that's a great sign right there. However, this is the only drawback. I've introduced some scarring right there. So let's clean that scarring up briefly with the orbital sander. I forgot I didn't have this plugged up, so this might be a little bit loud, so turn your volume down. Don't spend too much time on there. I think that's 220 maybe. Okay, what are we? 59 minutes. Probably about to shut me down. Let me pause. Okay, in case I forget, yes, you can route the mother of pearl as long as you did a good job epoxying it in. It will cut very gradually and not tear out. That was some of the fear I had on the front end. However, right now I'm offset on my lower block. When you're getting ready to do this route work, just make certain that if your fretboard is 2 1/4 of an inch wide, which it is, go ahead and find 1 1/8 and make your pencil mark. This is probably one of the most important parts of the entire build. If you miss this, you could get yourself in some pretty serious trouble because you might end up routing this off on an oblong. And also, when you're doing your route work, when you're really getting ready to do your route work, kind of come in here with a pencil and just kind of score it up a little bit, and then monitor as you see the pencil lead disappear. You know the progress of your work. You don't get lost in the stress of the job. Okay, so with that said, what I'm saying, see, because right now this is offset about 1/8 of an inch on this lower block, and when I do this route work over here, let's say I did the route work on this side and raised that bit all the way up and was really cowboying it. Well, when I flip it over on this side, which is closer to this edge, I will create exactly what I just said don't do. I would create a step of almost 1/8 of an inch, and that would get me in trouble. Okay, so I've got to be very aware of that when I'm doing that machine work. So let's see what it looks like in the raw with a little bit of a lacquer thinner on it, and hopefully it's a really beautiful start. Nowhere near what it's going to look like once it's finished. It's going to be about 5, if not 10 times darker than that. But it shows you the grain of that board, how beautiful it is, how straight it is. It's a very, very straight grain. I don't want to wipe it with mineral spirits, although it would be really beautiful, but I just wanted to show you guys that to motivate you to build your own fretboard. But if you're really smart, you'll just buy your fretboard from Stuart McDonald. And but the only problem with buying the fretboard from Stuart McDonald, it's already radiused, and then you're having to do all of this real intricate X-Acto knife work on a radius surface. I much prefer to do it on a flat surface, as that should just make perfect sense, because then you're working with a more controlled surface. Eric's SG was pre-radiused, no big deal. But I say it was a lot of work, but it turned out beautifully. You just have to adjust yourself to the job you're doing. Okay, so I appreciate you guys dropping in, staying in the ring, as I used to say. It's a lot of information, but that's why these guitars are worth $20,000, $15,000, and they're only going up. All right, we're over an hour. Surprised it hasn't cut me off. I don't know what else to talk about. I think I covered most of the details. I did get the tuners, Jerome. I won those off eBay. We'll talk about those in the future. But next time you see this, it'll be tapered with the binding on it, glued down, and ready to receive frets. All right, thanks guys, and I'll see you in the next video.